My name is Rayna Zemel, and I am a Los Angeles-based producer and engineer and DJ and official Ableton programmer and playback tech for the Pentatonics. In Philadelphia, I was growing up, so I was more of a consumer, I guess, just going to shows and kind of realizing that this was something that I might be interested in. And then I went to college at University of Vermont, and I was working at a guitar store. I started playing guitar with this band called Working Man's Army, and we just played a lot of shows all over the state and all over the East Coast, and it was a lot of fun. At that point, I came to the realization that I could be a big fish in a very, very, very small pond, and if you have aspirations to do anything bigger than that, or if you actually want to make a living at being a musician, then you're kind of forced to live in either New York or Nashville or Los Angeles. Way, way, way back in the day, I was a punk rock kid. So I used to listen to a lot of punk rock and heavy metal, and also a lot of hip hop. And so when I was first DJing, I was using Ableton. I was using a controller, which is very different from the way that old school hip hop is produced. So at that time, I was listening to a lot more EDM and pop music, a lot of trap music. I started DJing just out of necessity. When I moved here, I was introduced to a group of producers that were performing their own music, and it was largely through Ableton using controllers. And I was invited to this party that they threw, and they knew that I produced music and asked me if I wanted to get up on the stage, and so I wanted to, and then yeah, I just basically had to learn how to do it because I just really wanted to perform. That's really what it is. When I originally got hired for the Pentatonics gig, I knew of them because I'd watched Pitch Perfect 2. I had no idea who they were and how big they were before I started working for them, so that was definitely interesting. They are literally the most famous band I've never heard of. This tour was probably the easiest tour I've ever worked. I do playback, which basically means that I am responsible for all the backing tracks that a band or an a cappella group is going to be using. But since there are really no instruments with this group, my job was pretty simple. In their ears, they would have click tracks, they would have the triad, they would have the song IDs, so they knew which song that they were about to sing. But that was pretty much it. But besides the click tracks, the most important thing that I was triggering was the time code. I had been handed off the session from the last programmer that they had, who didn't really have an understanding of why everything needed to be on a grid. So the lights and the video was also coming out. It was being generated from time code, which would go into Video Village and then go into Light World, and the time code was acting like a click track for lights and video, and if that wasn't on tempo with the rest of the music, it just created a whole domino effect of problems. I always imagine a live show as like a long string of dominoes, and mine is the very first one. All of the work that I did was all in rehearsal and pre-production. So this woman named Laura Escude, she is the CEO of a company called Electronic Creatives, who specialize in playback for large-scale concerts. And we did 3 days of rehearsal in Nashville, and we spent about 14 hours a day for 3 days straight in the basement of whatever the local basketball team stadium is programming the show. So it was a lot of work during the pre-production, but luckily once we actually got onto the road, it was plug and play. It's the same show every night. The whole point is to make everything exactly the same. You don't want to have any surprises, especially when there's so many moving parts. People pay good money to go see a show, and you want it to be perfect every single time.